The last but one category of function we are going to discuss is date and time functions. Under date and time, we shall only learn the dated if function. The dated if function is used to compute the age of a person. There are several other means and functions by which we can compute the age of a person, but the simplest is the dated if. The syntax for dated if function is equals dated if into brackets start date, comma, followed by end date, comma, followed by unit, all enclosed in parentheses. The start date will be the date of birth of the person. The end date shall be the current date, and for us we will use the function known as today to call today's date. Okay, then for the unit we have various options given to us here, but the one that we mostly use is the year. So here the system will pick the year of the start date and then the year of the end date and use them to compute the results for us. Kindly type the information in the table in Excel, but for want of time I have already typed it in mine, but you can pause the video and do so, and then when you are done you continue the viewing and then the practice. Okay, so I have my content or data entered here. I want to determine these individuals, their ages per their date of birth. So what I'll do is I'll type equal to followed by dated if into bracket. The start date will be the date of birth which is contained in the cell, so we will type the cell, then followed by the end date, and we said for the end date we will use the current date, and for us to get the current date we will have to call or use the function known as today. So we type today, then we bring the bracket open and bracket close, then we type comma, then the units we want it to be the year, but because y is a string we need to put it in double quotes as you have learned already. So we type that, then we close the bracket. When you are done you press the enter key and you see you have your the person's age computed by the system for you. Now let us copy this function down here. Then we have all the students, their ages. So if let's say you are requested to determine the ages of students, once you have organized the information about the students in Excel and their date of birth is included, you can compute their ages directly in Excel using the dated if. Again, look at the syntax again. Okay, look at the syntax again. Alright. The last function we are discussing is the text category of functions. And under text, we will study concatenation. When we talk about concatenation, it means we are taking two or more texts from two or more cells and combining those texts as one in one cell. So when you look at the table that you typed, you have your cell name here, you have your other name here, and then in this space we want the full name. We don't have to type the full name by ourselves. We can use the concatenate function to combine this surname and then this other name to form the full name here. The syntax for concatenate is equals concatenate into bracket text 1, comma followed by text 2, then followed by if there are other texts that you need to add. But you know that the text is contained within cells. So here it will be the cell reference of the first cell containing the first name, followed by the next, followed by the next, followed by the next. Okay. Let us do this in the Excel program. Okay, so we want to combine these two names. So what we do is you type equals to concatenate, bracket to pin. Then you select the first cell containing the value to be included. Then you press the comma key, space, and you want some space between the names. So what you do is you bring the first quote, double quote, create some space, and then bring the ending quote. So now there will be space in between the two names. And then now you bring your comma again. Then you type the last cell containing the last name, or if there are others, you bring comma and you do same. Okay, so you close the bracket, and then once you are done, you press the enter key, and there you have it. The full name appears. It has combined the surname and then the other name. Let us copy this function. And there we have it. So we end with the functions. But before we close, I want us to learn about the error messages we may encounter whilst you are using spreadsheet programs. When we were doing the functions, at least you might have recognized some of, such as the hash n/a. Okay, you should have seen some of them. You might have seen value, name, and so on and so forth. Each of these error values, when they appear in a cell, means something. It means that there is a particular error that you need to correct. Okay, so for instance, when you see a number of hash signs appearing in a particular cell, what does it mean? Now, this indicates that the column is too narrow to display the computer results. It could be that the content has been formatted or not formatted. In this case, increase the column width. So for instance, we may compute this, okay, and then we might have formatted this to, let's say, 28, font size of 28. Now let's say this is the size of the column, and you notice that the size of the column is too small to display the values. So when you see this one, it means that the width of the column is too small, and therefore all the information cannot be properly displayed in the cell. So what you do is you have to expand the width of the column so that all the information can be properly displayed. Then you might also encounter an error message like hash div /0 exclamation. Now this indicates that the formula is dividing a value by 0 or an empty cell. Let's say you are dividing a number by another number, but you made a mistake. Let's say 20 here, okay, and then we have 10 here. So let's say we are dividing 20 by 10, and then in creating the formula we type D11 divided by, let's say, B11. You notice that this cell is empty, so we are dividing this cell's content by an empty cell. So when that happens, you get this error message. It means that the divisor is empty, or it is 0, and you cannot divide any value by 0. When you do that, you get an error message as this. Okay. Then we have the hash name question mark error message or value. Now when you see this error message, what does it mean? Now this indicates that the cell contains a formula name or cell reference that MS Excel program does not recognize. Okay, so for instance, if let's say I have tax here, tax is 2, okay, and I have a value of, let's say, 18, or let's say 0.2 here, and then in computing the tax I type 18 multiplied by, instead of choosing this, I choose this cell and then press the enter key. Okay, when you see this, it means no, let me use a different one that will give me that particular error. Okay, so let's say string, let's say I'm creating a formula here, 1410, or let me set as D3 E8, enter. Yeah, so you see something like this. It means that whatever you have typed here, the Excel program doesn't know what you are trying to type. Is this a function? Is it a function, if it is a function, this kind of function is not recognized. It's not known to the Excel program. This can happen when, let's say, you are typing the function and you get the spelling wrong. Okay, then you may probably get this. It means that the Excel program doesn't recognize whatever function that you are calling. It doesn't know it. Okay. Then we have the null error value. And when you get the null error value, it may mean a number of things. Let's say this indicates that the formula is referring to an intersection of cell ranges that do not intersect. Okay, so let's say we have, for instance, or let me say, it may also occur when you use spaces to separate arguments instead of comments or columns. This is what normally happens, but the first part, it doesn't normally, we don't normally get ourselves into that. So let me use the second part. So let's say, for instance, let me state some values here, 18, 20, okay, and I'm adding these two. Then sum here, what is the cell reference? I 13. Then instead of bringing comma or colon, I leave space and then type I 12. I 12. I 11. Okay, then I close it. Then I press enter. Now what you see now, it means that instead of using comma to separate the cell references or colon to separate the cell references, you used spaces, and therefore you get this kind of error message. Okay, it means that you can go back to your cell and then you correct that mistake. You go into the formula bar and then you put the comma or colon there. Once you correct the mistake, the computation is done for you. The next one is value. The value error message. This indicates that a formula refers to a cell that MS Excel cannot use in computation. Okay, for instance, a cell containing text data. When you use a wrong operator in a function, this error value would also appear. So let's go back to our text here. So we have 18 here, equals this, and then instead of multiplying this by this content of this cell, we multiplied it by, let's say, the content of this cell. Then we press enter. You get this error message. So what this tells you is that whenever you are computing and you select a cell that contains text, okay, then you will get this error message. Please, it doesn't mean that we cannot use cells containing text at all in all functions. You remember that for the logical functions, we use the strings or texts as part of the arguments. But apart from the logical functions, we don't normally use strings as part of our arguments for functions or formulas that we may be using. So the moment you use something like that, then it will tell you that no, it is wrong. You are trying to use text as part of the values to be used in the computation, and that will not work. Then the next error value is ref. And what does it mean? This indicates that the formula refers to a cell that is not valid. An example is when a row containing a cell used in calculation has been deleted. So let's say, for instance, I added these two values, computed the sum with these two values in these two cells, and mistakenly I delete this row. That means that what it is trying to tell you is that no, it cannot locate the row or column that contained the cell whose value was being used as part of the argument of the function or formula. So initially the values are there, but you have deleted a particular cell or row containing a value, and therefore it means that the computation cannot be done for. So it means there's a particular cell that cannot be referenced anymore within the formula or function that you have created. The next one is the num error message. Usually when you get this one, it means that you are trying to cause the computer to perform an impossible computation. Okay, so for instance, if let's say I type here -5, now I want to find the square root of -5, because square root of -5, you get this error message. It means you are asking it to perform an impossible computation. Okay, that is what this kind of error message means. The last error message is the NA error message. Now what does this mean when it appears in a cell? It means that no value available. When we're doing the V lookup and then the H lookup, you notice this one a lot. Now this means that the cell being used in a formula or function does not contain data, or it is empty. So let us go back to our H look, look here. So for instance, if we enter function like equals v lookup into bracket this comma this table comma the index is this one, so 2, then range lookup is 0, close, then you press enter, then you get the ending. What this one tells you is that wherever the cell you are asking the program to pick the value from doesn't contain any value for which it should pick for use, so it is empty. That is what that error message means. So here we just input the value there, and then this will be corrected. Okay, so that will end our lesson on functions. We shall meet for our next session, which will be on editing and formatting worksheets. Have a blessed day.